He laughed when I said I loved him. So I stopped chasing, blocked his number, and built a life he'd never be part of. Oh. He watches from the sidelines while I bloom, while someone else brings me happiness and never once asks me to shrink. It's about choosing yourself, and someone who chooses you back. In high school, nothing was louder than silence. That's what I learned the day I stopped chasing Ryan Miller. I used to think love was about proving yourself, about being the one who waited, the one who forgave, the one who stood in the background until someone noticed. But the thing about standing in the background for too long is that you eventually blend into it. Ryan and I had known each other since 8th grade. We weren't close at first. He was loud, charming, and effortlessly popular. The kind of boy teachers liked even when he forgot his homework and classmates adored even when he forgot their names. I was not that. I liked quiet. I liked books. I liked the way the library smelled in autumn, like old paper and still air and time that didn't rush. Somehow, in the middle of all that difference, we collided. It started small. A shared umbrella. A past note in math class. An accidental bump in the hallway followed by a laugh that lingered too long. By junior year I had convinced myself it was real. Even when he never said it. Even when he never called me his girlfriend out loud. It was Thursday when it finally fell apart. I was in the library, sorting the new batch of donated books with my usual after-school shift, when a folded note slipped out of one. It was meant for someone else. You're cute when you pout. But stop staring at me during gym. Lena's getting suspicious. Face blowing is far. I froze. My hands trembled, but I carefully put the note back between the pages. He was never mine. He just borrowed me when it was convenient. I didn't cry. Not right away. I went home, brewed a cup of chamomile tea and sat at my desk until the sun dipped low behind the rooftops. The glow from my laptop screen made the edges of my vision blur. I looked at the open chat window. Ryan's last message from 2 days ago sat unread. Can you bring my notes to homeroom? I left them in your locker again. Oh. I closed the tab. Blocked him. And then I started typing. That night I applied for an early college prep program. One that would require me to spend weekends off campus, working under an actual research mentor downtown. It was hard to get in. Only 2 students in the whole district usually made the cut. I didn't care. I needed to move forward even if it was through shattered pieces. Monday morning I walked into homeroom like nothing had happened. Except everything had. Ryan greeted me with his usual smirk. Lena, you see the game last night? I glanced at him. You left your own notes in your locker again, didn't you? He blinked. Wait, what? I handed them to him with a polite smile. Don't worry. This is the last time. The whispers started by lunch. Did they break up? Were they even together? Ryan's with Sierra now, right? Sierra Bennett. The girl with the cherry blossom perfume and honey-colored hair. She had transferred in at the beginning of the term, and it hadn't taken long for everyone to orbit around her like she was gravity itself. I didn't hate her. That's what surprised me the most. 2 weeks passed. I focused on my studies, volunteered at the downtown science lab, and slowly my world expanded. It was in that new world that I met Noah Blake. He wasn't flashy. He didn't talk too much. He didn't sit at the center of the cafeteria or walk girls to their next class for attention. He just noticed things. The first time he spoke to me, it wasn't about my grades or my silence. It was about a book I had left in the lab lounge. You like astrophysics? He asked, holding the worn copy of Brief Answers to the Big Questions. I nodded, a bit startled. He grinned. Good taste. He didn't comment on Ryan. Or Sierra. Or the fact that I was the girl who used to smile too brightly when Ryan Miller passed by. He just sat down beside me and opened his own book. At school, Ryan started acting differently. He stopped smiling when I passed by. Started asking questions in group chat like, Lena, you coming to the club meeting? Even though he never cared if I was there before. He stopped walking Sierra to class. I didn't look too hard into it. Because for the first time, someone else's opinion didn't feel like oxygen. One afternoon I was finishing up a lab report when Noah leaned over and said, You always look like you're carrying the weight of a dying star. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Felt strange. Like muscles remembering how to move. By the time finals rolled around, I was ranked top 3 in the district. My mentor at the research program pulled me aside and said I had a shot at a scholarship no senior had ever landed before. I smiled and nodded. But inside I was finally breathing again. Ryan cornered me after school one day. Can we talk? I glanced at the time. I've got somewhere to be. Lena. His voice dropped. I messed up. I looked at him. Really looked. He had dark circles under his eyes. His hair was a mess. His smile was crooked, unsure. He held out the Mobius strip necklace he gave me last winter. I found this in your locker. I stepped back. You laughed, I said. He frowned. What? That day. When I said I loved you. He was silent. I shook my head. I'm not mad anymore. But I don't need this. I turned away. He stood there like he wanted to stop me, but he didn't. Because that was always the problem with Ryan. He liked attention more than effort. As I walked out, Noah was waiting near the gates, a hoodie slung over one shoulder, holding a thermos in his hand. Hot cocoa, he said with a grin. For the girl who's about to ace another mock exam. I smiled. Took the cup. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't look back. People think the worst part of heartbreak is the moment it happens. They're wrong. The worst part is the silence that follows. The days when your phone doesn't light up anymore. The mornings when your name isn't called in the hallway and no one asks why your voice is quieter. But I had learned to stop waiting for someone else to notice. Especially him. The Monday after finals, the bulletin board outside the academic office was swarmed with students. They'd posted the final rankings early. I didn't rush to look. I already knew I'd done well. But Ryan did. I saw him from a distance, shoulders tense, scanning the list. His eyes moved too fast, his jaw clenched. When he finally stepped back, he turned and spotted me standing further down the hall. Our eyes met. Poked, haunted. Like something had cracked open inside him. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I simply turned and walked the other way. In the lab, Noah had already claimed our usual table near the windows. There was a quiet kind of peace to him, like nothing could shake his center. Even when deadlines loomed or the printer jammed again. When I sat down, he slid a granola bar across the table without looking up from his laptop. Refuel, he said. I raised an eyebrow. What, are you my lab partner or my life coach? He smirked. Both. Obviously. I peeled back the wrapper and took a bite. Thanks. He finally looked at me. Then paused. What happened? I shrugged. Ryan, he said like he already knew. I didn't ask how. Noah had a way of knowing things before you spoke them. Don't let him rent space in your head again, he added softly. He never paid the deposit. I smiled in spite of myself. Your metaphors are terrible. Yet you're still here. Sierra tried to talk to me 2 days later. It was between periods. I was alone by the lockers, stacking some borrowed textbooks into my bag when she approached. Her heels clicked like punctuation on the tile. Lena. I turned. He looked nervous. Not the usual sunshine and confidence. Her mascara was smudged and her voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. I just wanted to say, she paused, shifting uncomfortably. Ryan and I aren't, whatever people think we are. I zipped my bag and remained silent. He started messaging me when we were paired for gym. It wasn't serious. Not to me at least. But when I saw how he looked at you after, I realized. Realized what? I asked. He swallowed. That I was the temporary one. There was something about the way she said it that made my chest ache just for a second. I didn't know you were still in love with him, she added. I'm not, I said simply. That ended when he started acting like I didn't matter. Sierra blinked. But you were always with him. Everyone thought you two were inevitable. I closed my locker with a soft click. There's nothing inevitable about someone who makes you feel invisible. She looked down at her shoes. For once, she didn't have a comeback. That evening, I was in the science lab late, cleaning up after mock presentation with Noah. The room was empty except for the two of us. He was scribbling something on the whiteboard, some physics equation that was definitely extra credit and definitely optional. You know, he said without turning around, you've gotten quieter lately. I looked up from the microscope. I've always been quiet. Not like this. I hesitated. Then said, I found a note once. In a book. Noah paused his scribbling. It was from Ryan. Sierra. Back when I still thought we were something. He slowly turned, marker cap in hand. I'm sorry. I never told anyone. Not even him. I just left. That's the kind of silence that screams, he said. I looked at him. And for the first time really looked. There was no pity in his expression. Only understanding. "You never told me how you got that scar," he said suddenly, nodding to the faint line along my wrist. I instinctively pulled my sleeve down. "Kitchen accident," I said. "My fault. I knocked a pan over during a family dinner and tried to catch it." He smiled gently. "Trying to catch what hurts you before it crashes. Story of your life, huh?" My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, but the words didn't come. He stepped closer and his voice dropped to a near whisper. "You don't have to keep saving everyone, Lena. Sometimes, someone needs to save you too." My breath caught. The tension between us was still, not forced. Like the hush before something important. "I don't want saving," I said quietly. He tilted his head. "Then maybe just someone who sees you clearly." And somehow, that was worse. Because I didn't realize how badly I wanted that until he said it out loud. Ryan tried again the next day. It was pouring outside, thunder echoing through the courtyard. I was in the music room alone, tuning one of the old school pianos we used for recitals. He slipped in through the side door like a ghost. "I heard your scholarship interview went well," he said. I didn't look at him. "It did. I knew you'd make it." "Did you?" I said, fingers still gently pressing the keys. He walked closer. "I miss you, Lena." I paused, then asked the question I had buried for weeks. "Why did you laugh when I told you I loved you?" He was silent for a long time. "I was scared," he finally said. "Of what?" "Of how much I didn't deserve it." I stood up. "Then why did you still take it?" He looked at me, wet hair plastered to his forehead. "Because I was selfish." I nodded. "That at least we agree on." He stepped closer. "Can we start over?" I tilted my head. "No." He blinked. "No. No," I repeated. "You don't get to laugh at someone's heart and expect them to hand it back to you whole." His voice dropped. "I made a mistake, Lena." "No," I said calmly. "You made a choice. And now I'm making mine." When I stepped out of the room, the rain was still falling hard. But under the covered walkway someone was waiting. Hood up, backpack slung low. "Noah." He looked at me, then down at my soaked sleeves. "Let's get you home." We didn't talk much on the walk. But when he handed me his jacket at the gate, I didn't refuse. "You okay?" he asked. "I think I will be." He smiled. "Good. You've still got a lot of blooming left to do." The thing about growth? It doesn't always feel good. Sometimes it feels like loneliness. Sometimes it feels like anger that has nowhere to go. Sometimes it feels like standing in the mirror and not recognizing yourself. Not because you've changed too much, but because you've finally stopped trying to be small enough to fit someone else's frame. That's where I was. Right on the edge of something new. Right where things stopped hurting as much. And where I started to bloom. Ryan stopped trying after that rainy afternoon. Or maybe I just stopped noticing. Either way, the tension in the air shifted. He no longer lingered in the hallways when I passed. No more messages. No more half smiles. No more searching eyes during roll call. Sierra kept her distance too. Maybe because she knew her part in everything. Or maybe because she saw that her presence no longer got a reaction from me. And then there was Noah. We didn't talk about feelings. Not directly. He didn't confess anything under the stars or slip love letters into my locker. There were no dramatic declarations or grand gestures. Guests stayed. One morning I showed up to the science lab early and found a cup of coffee on my desk. My name was scribbled on the lid in his messy handwriting, followed by a tiny doodle of Saturn. No note. No explanation. Just presence. One night while we were working late on a shared project, the power went out during a thunderstorm. I fumbled in the dark, my heart racing from the sudden pitch black. Then his voice, steady and close. "Relax. I've got a flashlight app." A soft glow filled the space between us. "I used to be scared of the dark when I was little," I admitted, surprising myself. Noah didn't laugh. "Me too," he said. "Still am sometimes." There was something about that. His honesty, quiet and undemanding, that made me feel safer than I ever had in the daylight. After that, we started walking home together. Not every day, but often enough that it became a pattern. He'd wait for me near the bike racks, earphones in, humming a song I never recognized. And we'd talk about space, about books, about dreams that felt too big for the town we lived in. He never brought up Ryan. He didn't need to. Because with Noah, it was never about what I was running from. only where I was going. College acceptance letters started arriving. Mine came in a simple white envelope from Columbia. I opened it alone in my bedroom, the late afternoon sun streaming through the blinds, dust dancing in the quiet air. Congratulations. I read the word 3 times before I let myself believe it. I didn't scream. Didn't cry. I just smiled. For the first time in a very long time I smiled because I wanted to. Not because I was trying to make someone else feel okay. I told Noah the next morning before homeroom. He grinned so wide I thought his face might split. Of course you got in, he said. They're lucky to have you. What about you? He hesitated. Then pulled out a crumpled envelope from his back pocket. Got my acceptance from Stanford. I blinked. Wait, Stanford. He shrugged. Figured if I'm going to change the world I might as well start big. I laughed. Stanford's across the country. He looked at me for a long moment. I know. We didn't say what that meant. We didn't have to. Some things are too early to define. Too fragile to label. But the weight of that unspoken goodbye hung between us for days. Prom came and went. I didn't go. Ryan asked me a week before. In the middle of the hallway. Loudly like it was a joke. Hey Lena. Let's give everyone the ending they expect. I just looked at him. That's the problem, Ryan, I said. You think life's about giving people a show. He didn't laugh. For once he had nothing clever to say. On prom night I stayed home and repotted my grandmother's aloe plant. It had outgrown its container, roots spilling over, thirsty for more space. Kind of like me. I was in the middle of cleaning up the mess when my phone buzzed. Noah, come outside. I frowned, wiped my hands on a towel and opened the front door. There he stood. No suit. No tie. Just jeans, a hoodie and 2 cups of hot cocoa in his hands. I figured, he said with a grin, if we're both skipping prom we might as well skip it together. We ended up sitting on the swings in the empty park across the street. He handed me a cup. No words were needed. We sipped in silence as the stars blinked above us, soft and distant. This is nice, I said after a while. He nodded. Then glanced sideways. You're going to do amazing things, Lena. My chest tightened. Noah. He looked down at his hands. I know. Stanford. Columbia. Time zones. Life. I swallowed. But if you ever get lost out there, he added, voice softer now, just know, I'll still be here. Rooting for you. Always. The night air was cold. But I was warm. Warmer than I'd been in months. I didn't kiss him. Not yet. But I rested my head against his shoulder. And that felt louder than any I love you. Graduation came faster than I expected. I wore my cap like armor, the tassel swinging into my eyes. My name was called third to last. When I stepped off the stage, Ryan was waiting near the auditorium exit. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Less sure of himself. He handed me a photo. It was the 2 of us from a field trip in sophomore year. I was laughing. He was watching me. I didn't know how to love you back then, he said. I took the photo. Then handed it back. I didn't need you to know how, I said. I just needed you to try. He nodded. I'm sorry. I believed him. But that didn't change anything. Because some apologies are meant to be forgiven, just not revisited. Later, as everyone threw their caps into the air, I turned and saw Noah smiling from a distance, hands in his pockets. I walked toward him, slow and steady. And when I reached him, I did what I hadn't done weeks ago. I kissed him. Quick, soft, certain. He blinked. Wow. I smiled. Think you'll remember that at Stanford? He grinned. Every day. We didn't make promises that night. Didn't say forever. We just walked home under the stars side by side. Because love doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes it just needs to be kind. We often treat distance like a villain in love stories. The big bad wolf that swallows relationships whole. But I was learning that distance isn't what destroys something real. Silence is. Neglect is. Cowardice is. Distance just asks you if you're willing to try. And for the first time in my life I wanted to try. No, left 2 weeks before I did. Stanford's early program started midsummer. Columbia's orientation wouldn't begin until August. I helped him pack. Or really, I just sat on his floor while he tried to cram 3 years' worth of t-shirts and robotics parts into a suitcase meant for normal people. You know, I teased, holding up a cracked phone charger. You don't need to bring trash across the country. That's not trash, he laughed, snatching it from me. That's history. It's frayed, Noah. It still works. You say the same thing about your self-esteem. He laughed again, but his eyes softened when he looked at me. You're going to be okay without me? I've been okay for a long time, I said. He nodded, but the way he reached for my hand said something else entirely. At the airport we didn't cry. We just stood there holding on to the seconds like they could stretch across time zones. Noah kissed my forehead and whispered, "Don't forget to sleep. And hydrate. And eat real food." He chuckled. "So, be human?" "Exactly." He started to pull away, then paused. "Lena." "Yeah. Don't shrink. Just because I'm not around to remind you how big you are." I smiled. "Promise." And then he was gone. I thought the ache would set in right away. But it didn't. At least not in the way I expected. Came in waves. When I opened my messages and instinctively looked for his name. When I passed the park swing we used to sit on and saw it empty. When I caught myself laughing at something and wished he could hear it. But still life moved. And so did I. Columbia was big. Not just the campus but the energy. Everyone walked like they were running out of time. I'd been one of the top students in high school. Here, I was one of many. But strangely that didn't scare me. I liked disappearing into the crowd sometimes. I liked building something new from scratch. I liked that no one here knew about Ryan or Sierra or that stupid note in the library. I liked that I could just be me. Noah and I texted. Not every day, but often enough. Photos of our lunches. Voice memos about late-night study sessions. Occasional selfies. Him with his lab goggles on upside down. Me curled under a pile of textbooks like a burrito. One day I sent him a picture of the bench I'd found near the campus greenhouse. My new favorite spot. Quiet. Full sun. No boys asking to copy my notes. He replied 5 minutes later. "Sounds perfect. But I'd ask just to hear you say no." And then one week he didn't reply. At first I thought nothing of it. He was probably swamped. Classes had just ramped up. Labs. Exams. Group projects. But the second day passed. Then the third. And that silence, the kind that used to be comforting, started to feel like it had teeth again. By the fourth day I cracked. I called. Voicemail. I told myself not to panic. I told myself to trust him. But part of me still remembered what it felt like to be forgotten. And I wasn't sure if I could go through that again. That night I curled up in the blanket my mom had packed into my dorm box. The one I swore I wouldn't need. I scrolled through our message thread, rereading old jokes, timestamps, reactions. The last message from him was 5 days ago. "You're going to ace that midterm." No doubt in my mind. I whispered to the screen, "So where did you go?" The next morning I got a message. "Sorry. Your visit. Phone got smashed. I'm okay now." It wasn't from Noah's number. It was from his roommate. Followed by a blurry picture of Noah in a hospital gown, flipping the camera off with an 4 in his arm. And just like that, the knot in my chest unraveled. He called that night from his roommate's phone. "Hey," he rasped. "You're alive." "Barely." "What happened?" "Fell off my longboard like an idiot. Mild concussion. Dislocated wrist." I exhaled. "You scared me. Didn't mean to. But also, kinda nice to know you were worried." I could hear the smile in his voice. "You're an idiot." "I know. We didn't say, 'I love you.' We didn't need to. Some things were already too loud to speak." A few weeks later, a small package arrived in my dorm mailbox. Inside was a keychain. A miniature Mobius strip made of brass. Not from Ryan. Not the one I'd thrown away. This one had a tiny engraving. No shrinking. Not now. Not ever. No note. No sender. But I didn't need one. I clutched it in my hand and whispered into the still dorm air. "Thank you, Noah." It's funny how love doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes, it walks beside you for months, never needing to be seen. Sometimes it's just hot cocoa in the rain. Or a missed call that makes your heart pound. Or a keychain that says, "I see you even from miles away." So yes, distance was hard. But it wasn't the villain. It was just the test. And we were passing. They say time changes people. But that's not entirely true. Time reveals people. And space. Space reveals who keeps reaching even when your hand is no longer in theirs. By October I had fully settled into college life. Midterms had come and gone. My favorite barista at the campus cafe knew my order by heart. Hazelnut iced coffee, half sweet, extra cold foam. And my professors knew me not just as a top student, but as someone who stayed after class, asked tough questions and volunteered first. There was something freeing about it all. I was no longer Lena Carter, the girl who waited in hallways for boys to choose her. I was Lena Carter, the girl people asked for advice, notes and guidance. The girl who got invited to study groups, and not because she was the quiet, bookish one people ignored. I was blooming, even without anyone clapping for it. So I sometimes wondered, if Ryan saw me now, would he recognize me? The Lena who didn't chase, who didn't shrink, who didn't beg to be loved in return. Would he regret it? Would he even know what he lost? It was a late Thursday evening when I got a text that jolted me. Hey, I'm in New York. Thought maybe we could talk. Fine. I stared at my phone for a long minute. Then longer. Noah was on a video call with me when I mentioned it. He didn't flinch. Didn't look surprised. He just leaned back in his chair and asked gently, "Do you want to?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe." "Closure," he offered. "Curiosity. Same thing sometimes." We met at a cafe near campus the next day. Ryan was already there when I arrived. Hair neater than I remembered, coat too thin for the October wind, hands wrapped tightly around a cup of coffee that had clearly gone cold. When he looked up and saw me, he smiled. Not like he used to. Not like the boy who thought the world owed him affection. But like someone who had finally learned how to mean it. "Lena," he said. I sat across from him without responding. He looked different. Older but not in years. More like someone who had finally looked in the mirror long enough to stop lying to himself. "I got into NYU," he said after a pause. "Congratulations. Wasn't my first choice. Wasn't even my second. But I think I needed the rejection." I raised an eyebrow. "That's a strange way to start a conversation." He chuckled. "You always called me out when I tried to sound deep. You were always trying to impress the room instead of the person across from you. That one landed." He looked down. I deserved that. He fiddled with the edge of his sleeve. "Lena, I didn't come here to ask for anything." "Then why are you here?" He met my eyes. "To tell you something I should have said a long time ago." The cafe noise faded into a low hum behind us. "I didn't see you. Not really. I liked the way you looked at me. I liked feeling needed." I didn't say anything. I thought love was about being worshipped. I didn't know it was supposed to be mutual. "Ryan." He held up a hand. "Just let me finish." I nodded once. "I laughed when you said you loved me because I was terrified. Not of you, of how much you believed in me. Of how small I felt in comparison. You loved me without needing me to be anything but myself. And I couldn't do the same. I didn't know how." He paused, his voice quieter now. "Then I saw you leave. And I thought I could just move on. But you took the version of me I liked best when you walked away. And I didn't know how to become him without you." I exhaled slowly. "Ryan, I'm glad you're learning this." "I am." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "But that version of me you knew? She doesn't exist anymore." He frowned. "I grew past her. I had to. He stayed too long. Gave too much. Loved too blindly." A shadow crossed his face. "I never meant to kill that part of you." "You didn't kill her," I said gently. "I buried her. Because I finally understood she deserved more than what you gave." He nodded, pain tightening his features. "Is there someone else?" I hesitated, then smiled softly. "There's someone who listens. Who never asked me to earn his attention. Someone who showed up when I had nothing to offer but silence." His face fell. "I wish I'd been him." "I don't." He blinked. "Because if you were, I never would have met Noah." We left the cafe with nothing left unsaid. He didn't ask for a second chance. And I didn't pretend to be someone I wasn't anymore. It wasn't closure. It was confirmation. That leaving had been right. That I wasn't who I used to be. That I didn't need the boy who broke me to validate the woman I'd become. That night I called Noah. "Guess who showed up in New York?" I said. "Let me guess," he deadpanned. "Your long-lost twin who was switched at birth and is now a pop star?" "Close." "Ryan." "Oh." Silence. Then, "You okay?" "More than okay," I said. I told him the version of me he wants doesn't exist anymore. And what version are you now? I smiled. One who finally knows what she deserves. There was a pause. Then Noah said quietly, I wish I could hug you right now. I closed my eyes. Me too. Soon, he promised. Thanksgiving, right? I nodded, though he couldn't see it. Promise you won't shrink back into that old Lena while I'm gone? Promise. He chuckled. Good. Because I've got big plans for the new one. And for the first time I believed it. Not just the words. Not just the promise. But the future. One where I was no longer chasing people who didn't see me. One where I was running toward someone who always did. I always thought Thanksgiving was a holiday for other people. The kind with perfect families in matching sweaters and long oak tables full of laughter and pie. But that was never my house. Thanksgiving for us meant cold stuffing, Dad glued to football, Mom on her second glass of wine before noon, and me pretending not to notice either of them looking past each other like ghosts in an old photo. Till I came home. Out of habit. Out of obligation. Out of something I hadn't named yet. The air in our neighborhood was thick with the scent of wood smoke and distant casseroles. Yellow leaves blanketed the sidewalks and the trees stood half-naked, holding on to whatever color they had left. It felt symbolic. Like everyone was pretending things still looked full when they were already halfway bare. Mom met me at the door with a brisk nod. You're too thin, she said, pulling my suitcase into the hallway. Don't they feed you at that fancy Ivy League school? It's not an Ivy League, I said automatically. And yes, they do. Dad gave a grunt from the couch. It felt like we were all walking on eggshells someone else had already cracked. But despite the awkwardness, there was one silver lining. Noah was coming. Not for the whole week. Just for Thanksgiving Day. His parents were visiting relatives in California, and he'd decided to stay back and spend the break on his own. I didn't want him to. So I invited him to ours. It was bold, I know. But I had reached a point in my life where I no longer made decisions out of fear. And if anything could make this Thanksgiving bearable, it was Noah Bennett in my kitchen eating pumpkin pie and annoying me with bad metaphors. When he arrived, he was exactly as I imagined. Tall, bundled in his favorite dark green coat, cheeks pink from the wind, and holding a bag of groceries he'd insisted on bringing. My mother opened the door and looked him up and down. Are you the boy? She asked flatly. Noah grinned. I'm a boy, ma'am. Possibly the boy. The title's under review. She blinked. Then unexpectedly laughed. Well, at least you're not boring. Dinner was better than I'd expected. Mom only made one passive-aggressive comment about my career choices, and Dad didn't ask Noah a single question about sports. Noah charmed them both. Not in a performative way, but in the way that only someone truly comfortable with themselves can. He asked my mom for her pie crust recipe. He laughed at my dad's bad jokes like they were actually good. He helped me do the dishes without being asked. And then, just as the kitchen started to empty out and the quiet returned, he turned to me and said, Want to go for a walk? Outside the night was crisp and still. We walked side by side through the leaf-strewn streets, hands grazing, not quite touching. I didn't know what to expect, Noah said softly. From dinner. From this. From your world. I glanced up at him. Disappointed. No, he said, shaking his head. Hissed, surprised. You're even stronger than I thought. I laughed under my breath. You make it sound like I carry mountains. You do, he said. You just don't brag about it. I stopped walking. Turned to face him. The moonlight hit his features just right, and for a moment he looked like every poem I'd ever read but never believed in. Noah, I said, barely above a whisper. I think I know, he said gently, stepping closer. Me too. This time when he kissed me it wasn't soft or hesitant. It was sure. It was the kind of kiss that didn't need music or fireworks or an audience. It was real. Later that night, back at the house, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. He's good for you, she said, not looking up from the tea she was pouring. I blinked. What? That boy. Noah. He softens you without making you small. I didn't know how to respond. She never talked about feelings. Not hers. Not mine. Not anyone's. She sipped her tea and added, keep him close. And that was the end of the conversation. The next day Noah left. Not without promises. Not without plans. We didn't say forever. We said, see you soon. But somehow that felt just as sacred. The Monday after break, I returned to campus feeling different. Like something had shifted, some inner wire finally reconnected. I was lighter, focused, and just a little more open. A few days later, I got a message from Ryan. Saw you and Noah on your mom's Facebook. You look happy. I didn't respond, because I didn't need to. Some things are meant to be acknowledged in silence. Meanwhile, Noah sent me a photo of a broken robot from his engineering lab with the caption. It exploded. I need adult supervision. Fly here immediately. To which I replied. You are the adult. God help us all. We weren't perfect. Our schedules clashed. Our campuses were far apart. Our calls sometimes dropped. Our texts sometimes lagged. But we kept showing up. That was the difference. No more guessing. No more waiting. No more shrinking. Love, it turned out, didn't need to be constant fireworks. Sometimes, it was a quiet Thanksgiving walk and the soft brush of fingers against your own. Sometimes it was a boy who brought groceries to your childhood home and washed dishes with your mom. Sometimes it was just choosing each other. And again. And again. There's something about winter break that makes you reflective. Maybe it's the cold. Maybe it's the stillness after finals. Maybe it's the way the sky turns gray and holds everything in suspense, like even time itself is waiting to exhale. Or maybe it's just the quiet that creeps in when life finally slows down long enough for you to hear your own thoughts. That's what happened to me. Back in my childhood bedroom. Back in the house where walls remembered every version of me I'd ever been. I found a letter. Folded. Forgotten. It was tucked inside a notebook, one I hadn't opened since senior year. A pale blue envelope, my handwriting on the front. To Ryan. But mostly for me. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands trembling just a little, and opened it. Dear Ryan, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because I won't say it out loud. Maybe because I don't think you'd listen if I did. I loved you. More than you probably deserved. More than I should have allowed. I loved you through silence. Through being your second choice. Through feeling like an option you never picked, just kept around in case no one better came along. You loved being loved. But you never looked at me like I was a person. Just a mirror. One that reflected your ego back to you. You laughed when I said I loved you. And I laughed it off like it didn't hurt. But it did. I stopped saying it. I stopped chasing. But you never noticed. Because you were never really watching. I hope one day you understand what it means to be truly seen. And I hope someone loves you in a way that forces you to see them back. But that someone, it won't be me. Lena. I stared at the page for a long time. Funny how much weight could live inside paper. I didn't cry. I didn't burn it or tear it up like a movie character would. I folded it back into the envelope, placed it into a shoebox, and closed the lid. Some confessions are better left unsent. Not because they're untrue, but because the person they were meant for no longer deserves to read them. The next morning I woke up to a text from Noah. Look outside. Frowning, I pushed open my curtains. He was standing across the street. In the snow. Holding a coffee. And grinning like an idiot. I didn't even put on shoes. I ran out the door in socks, nearly slipped on the porch step, and launched myself into his arms. You're here. I laughed, breath fogging in the cold. Surprise, he said. I caught a red eye. Figured I'd beat the Christmas rush. I pulled back. You didn't tell me you were coming. That was the point. I shook my head, overwhelmed. Why? He looked at me like it was the dumbest question in the world. Because I missed you. We spent the rest of the day wrapped in blankets, eating junk food and watching terrible holiday movies in my living room. Mom smiled when she saw us. Dad didn't say anything, but later that night he offered Noah a beer and called him kid. In this house that was practically a marriage proposal. While Noah was in the bathroom brushing snow out of his hair, I pulled out my phone. I snapped a picture of the letter I'd found and sent it to him. Not to Ryan. To Noah. Seconds later his reply came. You don't have to explain it. I already knew. And then another. You're not that girl anymore. But I promise to love every version. Past, present, and whatever chaos you become next. I bit my lip, holding back tears. That night I showed him the shoebox. Not to share the past. But to show him the weight I no longer carried. We sat on the floor beside it, knees touching. You ever think about what would have happened if we met earlier? I asked. He considered it. Yeah. I would have fallen for you anyway. But I probably would have ignored you. He laughed. You did, remember? That whole week after the concussion. I grinned. Fair enough. Then he added more seriously, but maybe we had to find ourselves before we found each other. It didn't feel like some huge epiphany. It felt like truth. Simple. Quiet. Right. Christmas passed in a blur of lights, cookies, and sleepy kisses under the twinkling glow of tree lights. New Year's came with a snowfall and an unexpected kiss on the porch at midnight, surrounded by cheap fireworks and the sound of my mom cheering from inside. When Noah pulled away breathless and flushed, he said, "This year's going to be different." And I believed him. Because I was different. Because we were. Before he flew back to California, I handed him the keychain he once gave me. The brass Mobius strip, now slightly worn. "I want you to keep this for now," I said. He raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "Because next time we see each other, I want you to give it back." He smiled. "Deal." On the flight home, he sent one last message before boarding. "You've already bloomed. But you still don't know how radiant you are." And just like that, he was gone again. But this time I didn't feel empty. Because loving someone who leaves doesn't hurt. When they always come back. It was spring when I felt it. Not the season exactly. But in me. The weight was gone. The fear was gone. The need to be small just to keep someone else comfortable. Gone. I wasn't background anymore. I was the center of my own life. Finally. Noah saw it before I did. "You walk like you know where you're going now," he said one night on FaceTime as I curled into bed with my laptop perched on a pillow. "Do I?" He nodded. "Even when you don't." We didn't say "I love you" often. But we said it in other ways. In the way he remembered my favorite tea even during his midterms. In the way I sent him voice notes when I knew he was too tired to reply with words. In the way our silence never felt like absence. Just comfort. I ran into Ryan only once that semester. He was in New York visiting someone, he didn't say who. We bumped into each other on the subway platform of all places, both caught in the rush of downtown noise. His eyes widened when he saw me. He looked better. Lighter even. "Lena," he said, stepping closer. "Ryan." He gave me a tired smile. "You look happy." "I am." He hesitated. "With him." "With myself," I said first. Then with a smile, "And yes. With him too." He nodded. "I'm glad." No apology. No drama. Just the quiet understanding of two people who once held each other and now held nothing between them but memory. It felt like peace. Noah flew out for graduation. Not his, mine. He stood in the crowd, camera in hand, shouting louder than anyone when my name was called. When I tossed my cap into the sky, it wasn't just for celebration. It was for all the versions of me who once thought she'd never matter. It was for the girl who waited outside Ryan's house in the cold. It was for the girl who read notes never meant for her. It was for the girl who once mistook silence for safety. And it was for the woman I had become. Whole. Unapologetic. After the ceremony, I found Noah waiting by the cherry blossom trees on the east lawn. He didn't say anything at first. He just opened his arms and I ran into them. "I brought you something," he whispered against my hair. I pulled back. He held out a worn brass Mobius strip keychain. The same one he once gave me, the one that had passed between us like a vow. "This time," he said, "it's not a promise. It's a reminder." "Of what?" He took my hand and gently dropped it into my palm. "That you were infinite before anyone else believed it." We sat on the grass, shoes off, sunshine on our faces. I leaned my head on his shoulder. And for the first time in years, I didn't think about the past. I didn't replay scenes. Didn't wonder what if. Didn't look over my shoulder for ghosts. I was too busy living the present. And dreaming of the future. Some stories don't need a twist. They just need truth. Mine. It wasn't about who broke me. It was about how I rebuilt myself. With soft hands. With a quiet voice. With a love that never asked me to be less. Noah kissed my temple and whispered, "Where to next?" I smiled and looked at the sky. Anywhere. Everywhere. Because now I was no longer the girl waiting to be chosen. I was the girl who had already chosen herself. And someone who chose me back.